We are back, third segment of the Jason Mackey show that we do every Thursday on both the main Post-Gazette Sports channel and also here on our Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel. Jason, we're going to get into the Pirates. They swept the Phillies over the weekend. They've looked even better than they had since Don Kelly was hired initially, where they were playing better baseball than they were. Now I think they're playing good baseball to some extent, putting a little bit of a dent in that hole they dug for themselves early on. I guess my question for you is what is going to stick from this couple of week spurt? What can they do well through the rest of the season that they've shown an ability to do over this past month, and how much of it is just some level of positive regression that I think we all thought was due? They were hitting the ball hard, they just weren't finding holes. That was part of the offensive issue. They were due to be a little bit better in some ways, Jason. But are there things that are tent poles of possibly a better second half of the season?
Yeah, and I do believe there are several of them, Adam. I think I look at some of the Pirates' numbers right now, like their starting pitching is out of whack. I don't think it's going to continue. I mean, it's great that they're getting that level of starting pitching, but I don't think the Pirates are going to get that night in, night out. We've seen them most nights, or not most nights, but recently they've had a pretty sizable uptick in scoring. I don't think the Pirates are going to be regularly scoring 9-10 runs a game, even 6 or 7, and I don't need them to. But what I do think is sustainable, tenable, or whatever. Is good starting pitching, maybe very good starting pitching. I do think they can have an improved offense. And some of the other stuff, like I think Don Kelly, by and large, has done a pretty good job managing the bullpen. He's been a little bit conservative. I know pulling Mike Burrows out after 66 pitches the other night, people didn't love that when he lifted Skenes. By and large, he's been pretty good there. He had the one Sunday game, I think it was a Sunday game against the Padres. I didn't love that, the Tanner Rainey game. I'm going to just call it that. I thought it was a mistake for Kelly, but by and large, I thought that he's managed games well. And some of the times that he's choosing to press buttons, I think, make a lot of sense. That we saw a sacrifice bunt fairly recently turn into 2 runs with Key Brian Hayes. And just like Donnie's not willing to sit back and let the game happen, which I like. I do think he has players' attention. I think they like playing for him. They take pride in playing for him. And I think we're seeing that with some of the errors in the cleaner games that are being played. They're just, those are miscues that the Pirates made far too often under Derek Shelton. They've often been in the right position. It's just executing those plays that caused an issue. And you can just see they're making more of those plays routinely. And I expect that to continue under Kelly.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about Don Kelly. We did a video 2 weeks ago with, I think, a similar conceit of, how much of a difference is he making and how much of a difference is the positive regression making? I guess now we're about a month into his tenure. What grade do you give him? And how does it inform your outlook of, what is left to play for over these last 3.5 months?
Yeah, I mean, I'd give him at least a B, maybe more. And it's not so much predicated on the record. Like, I know people can look at the record and say, well, it's basically 500. Like, how can you give him an A? Because it's what he changed in that clubhouse. Because it was how dead and just awful it was to be around the Pirates during the final days of Derek Shelton. And Don Kelly came in and got this team to show life. Don Kelly can't change the Pirates roster. He can't go out and, after the fact, sign a first baseman this offseason who provides more offense. He can't spend free agent money of the past couple of years differently. Like, I don't think Ben Cherington has done a good enough job, but given what's in front of him, I think Don Kelly has. He's gotten their attention, as we're talking about. They've played better baseball. There should be zero issue in my mind about bringing Don Kelly back next year. He should be this team's manager, no questions asked, and I think he will be. But that's what I look at for to play the rest of the season. Like, if this continues, I think the Pirates are actually in a pretty good spot heading into next year. And the trade deadline, the offseason, they certainly have some tent poles, some boxes they need to check, and some important moves they need to make. But they have a manager in place.
Jason, I want to talk to you a little bit about Bailey Falter. We hadn't gotten a ton of opportunities to talk about him, but he had a lights out month of May. 0.76 ERA. I gave up 4 runs in the win against the Phillies last week. Got knocked out a little bit early, but he's still been on quite the heater. He's very interesting because I feel like he's been here forever. I feel like he's a little older than he is, even though he's 28. But he's not a free agent until he's 29, which puts him, I think, or not when he's 29, 2029. Which puts him in a very interesting place because I think my reflexes tell me that he might be a guy you might want to dangle at the deadline as a pitcher who may be at the peak of his powers here with a 3.49 ERA. You might be able to get something nice for him and then slot in some of these younger prospects that you'd like to build the franchise around. But then I look at the service time and say, this is a guy who could be here for a handful more years and could give you an option to maybe trade some other guys instead. What did you read on Bailey Falter?
I would not trade him, Adam. No way, no how. I think he's ARB 2 this year and probably ARB 2 for a very reasonable rate. You need a lefty in your rotation, especially at PNC Park, plays well. I've been critical of Ben Cherington and his staff for not adding offense and drafting poorly and a bunch of other stuff. Credit where it's due, man. Bailey Falter has been a great find. They've fixed him, helping him realize his potential. I would not go anywhere other than just continue to pay Bailey Falter to pitch for me. Cross the rest of it when you get to it. But it takes it into a larger conversation for me. I mean, if I'm the Pirates, if I'm running the team, like I'm thinking about how do I best compete? How do I compete in 2026? Because I don't think they should be punting on that. I do think they should be making aggressive decisions in how to orient the limited dollars that they have. How do you come up with a team with, an identity, lean into certain things? And Bailey Falter's part of that team for me. You're not going to keep Andrew Heaney. I understand he's probably going to be traded around the deadline. They're going to have to make some tough decisions, man. But Bailey Falter, what he's brought, he's absolutely in my rotation for next year. If that means it's him, Skenes, obviously not in this order, him, Skenes, Bubba. I would trade Mitch before I'd trade Bailey Falter. But Thomas Harrington, maybe Ashcraft comes into the rotation, Majinski, Oviedo. I have no idea. But Bailey Falter is not going anywhere for me. He's been very much worth the price. He's been excellent.
Yeah, there's not.
Did you trade him?
I don't know. I asked the question because I don't really know what I think.
I can understand the counter argument. I just don't anytime anybody's good in Pittsburgh, they're like, oh, we got to trade him. We got to trade him.
Here's what I would say if you did trade him is that I feel like he could be a candidate to be a baseball trade. Someone you go out and say, we're going to get someone of similar, solid caliber, might be playing a little over his skis, to put someone in the outfield. Something like idea of getting some 18-year-old kid down in single A that might show up in 5 years with the intention of going out and bringing back a good player. And maybe you have to throw a prospect or two into that, but he kind of leads the package and helps you go out and get the bat that you need. Certainly, building toward 2026, a guy who might be here for a similar amount of time. That would be my argument. He'd be a good baseball trade candidate.
I don't disagree with the need to do a baseball trade. I'd rather see them do it with Mitch Keller. They ain't spending. The Pirates are going to conduct themselves a certain way financially, and I'd like to see them free up that money and spend it differently. I think the Pirates can replicate that performance for cheaper with one of the guys they have in AAA right now than they can a left-hander, because you're going to have to go out and buy it, right? They don't have that coming up in their system. They don't have another left-hander that can do what Bailey Falter can do. They do have right-handers in their system that can come in and do what Keller can do, and you're freeing up more money. And so you free up that money that you'd save on Keller, go spend it on a third baseman, because I also think they should trade Brian Hayes. But regardless, spend it on a bat, an outfielder, whatever you want to say. I don't know. We're close. We're saying they need a baseball trade. They need a bat. I agree with that. I would just use Keller instead of Falter to do it.
Jason, we are going to get into some other names on the other side of this break. Henry Davis, Spencer Horwitz, David Bednar. Where is Bubba Chandler? We're going to dig into all of those questions on the other side. Before we do, though, we want to send along a message from our friends at Greenewalt Roofing.
Hey, Pittsburgh. When you think of great roofs, you think Greenewalt Roofing Company. With over 20 years experience, Greenewalt knows your roof is your home's first line of defense from rain, wind, snow, and ice. That's why Greenewalt Roofing's standard for perfection is so important. You can trust that their team of experienced installers will treat your property like it's their own. When it comes to roof replacements, Greenewalt Roofing is Pittsburgh's only choice. Visit greenewaltroofing.com today or call 412-314-8882 to schedule your free estimate. PA contractor number 36262.
We are back on the Jason Mackey show here on the Pirates PG YouTube channel. Jason, I wanted to talk about a couple of names here that seem to have done some timely hitting, make you feel a little bit better about them in Spencer Horwitz and Henry Davis. But when you look at the stats, there's still, I think, a lot of valid concern there. Henry Davis still hitting 195 despite a couple nice home runs that have fueled this winning streak. Spencer Horwitz, I'm pulling up the stats here. He's where is he at? He's still a sub replacement level player. He's got a 585 OPS hitting 205. What's your read on those two guys? I think I've asked some version of this question several times on this show. Are you more encouraged or discouraged?
I like that. I like the encouraged or discouraged. I'm probably more discouraged by Spencer Horwitz and more encouraged by Henry Davis, if I had to pick one. Henry's been almost a one WAR player. I mean, I'll give him that. Spencer Horwitz has been a negative WAR player at this point. The defense with Henry has been better than expected. It's been timely. I don't know what you do to manage Joey Bart, though. I'm not trying to wiggle out of the question, Adam, but I mean, he's right now starting a rehab assignment with AAA Indianapolis. He's going to be back before too long. Do you give him at bats at first base? I kind of want to see Henry Davis get a little bit more runway. Henry Davis has been streaky, but his ability to use left field, get his hands around, manipulate his barrel, that stuff has improved. I remember talking to John Wayner about that recently and some of the strides that Henry has made. Horwitz, he's getting on base a little bit. Not as much as you'd like. If you look at Luis Ortiz, anybody watching or listening to this, actually don't look at Luis Ortiz because it'll make you mad. It just hasn't been enough return on what they gave up for Horwitz. I'd probably look at playing Joey Bart some at first. I don't know totally what you do with Spencer Horwitz. I'm also trying to not rush to judgment. I mean, Horwitz has played 21 games. Guys take some time to get going. He was delayed because of injury. So that's kind of where I'm at on those guys. And they don't really have many other alternatives either, Adam. You need those guys to work out. The only thing you got to figure out, like I said, is how do you work in Bart?
You know, I am willing to give Spencer Horwitz the benefit of the doubt. I'm just not willing to give Ben Cherington the benefit of the doubt for making the move and going out and acquiring a guy who was in that situation. And I think that's the biggest point of frustration is, you know, if he was the Pirates guy already, you could probably live with what you're going through. But to your point, you gave up a lot to get him to be productive now, not, you know, into the future. And they haven't gotten that from him. Jason, I also wanted to ask you about David Bednar. He seems to have regained his form to a large extent. He's at 8 saves on the season as we're talking. They're still playing. We're recording this on Wednesday during the game, so he may have a 9th save in there. We don't know. But I'm going to give you an over-under here that I think is very interesting. 23 saves was his number a year ago when he was taken out of the closer's role, was not the same guy. Do you think he gets over or under that number over the course of the rest of the season? Can he be maybe not that all-star level guy, but something resembling that stopper that you can rely on in those late innings?
Where's he at right now, Adam? 8? He's
at 8, yes.
I don't know if he beats that. Not because I think Bednar pitches poorly, but here's what I think happens. And to my knowledge, they have not committed to Bednar as their closer. I know with their actions, it says Bednar more often than not, but they still use Santana some late. It wouldn't surprise me if he still gets some run late in games. It also wouldn't surprise me if they traded Bednar. And I think they have to. And if he goes somewhere else, I mean, I don't know if he winds up in a closing situation. I don't think we really care about the number of saves at this point. Who knows what happens, but that's where I'm kind of at with David. I mean, I give him credit for bouncing back the way he's done things, but that amount of money for a setup guy / guy in a closer timeshare, like that's not money well spent by the Pirates. And if he's discovered some level of performance and made himself tradable and this season is sunk for them, which it is, the right move is to trade him. He's on an expiring contract. He's going to become a free agent maybe you think that he resigns here, but I don't know, man. You can revisit that after the season. I think he gets fewer than the 23 saves, and I think it would be smart if they look to trade him.
Jason, got a couple other questions about the pitching staff here. Carmen Machinsky is back, not in a starting role, kind of in that longer bullpen role that you and I had talked about, several times early in the season. Notably, Bubba Chandler is still not here. We're getting into what? When did Garrett Cole come up? It was like early, mid-June, something like that. We're getting to like post-Garrett Cole territory, which was well before, that was, I think they got Garrett Cole here as soon as they could with the Super 2 stuff. We're getting out of the Super 2 stuff. Are you concerned at all that we haven't seen him yet? What's going on with him compared to how they handled Paul Skenes a year ago?
Well, prior to today, Adam, and I'm going to try to make this point as I look up a box score, because as we've been recording this, I actually got an email that Bubba Chandler was out of the game early today, which I'm now looking at the box score, and it's confirmed. He's out of the game after 2/3 of an inning in 31 pitches. I'm reacting to this and learning it live, so it's going to be an interesting podcast. I don't know why you'd make that decision if you plan to call him up. And I learned about this. I got an email from somebody who said there were several trips to the mound and one with the trainer. I don't know. I can't verify any of that, but I am looking at the official box score, and it says he threw 2/3 of an inning and 31 pitches. That's not ideal. That's not normal. We'll have to investigate and see what's going on there. Again, prior to today, I think a lot of what the Pirates were doing was financially motivated. They don't have a need to bring him up here right now in what is effectively a lost season. If you bring Bubba Chandler up, prior to today or 2 weeks ago or whatever, you're going to give him enough time to potentially win the NL Rookie of the Year. I'd like to see them do that. I'd like to see them give him the opportunity. I also understand why, if you're the Pirates and you're trying to control service time and all this other crap that baseball makes you worry about, why you might not do it. It's a broken system. It's a larger conversation than we can have right now. And shit, yeah, I'm sure Super 2 status comes into it. You don't want to pay him, it's going to cost more to promote him now. And if you had something to play for right now, that's a little bit different because of their lousy start. They don't. And then I guess all of that, just keep in mind, Bubba Chandler out after 31 pitches today. So it might be a moot point. Hope everything's okay. Hope it was just something that is not injury or performance related. I don't know. Hopefully it was a decision. Hopefully he's coming up right now. I don't know. We got to look into it, but that's an odd move.
Here's my problem with it, Jason, is that it's assuming a lot. Paul Skenes did come up here and was NL Rookie of the Year caliber, but almost everyone else that this regime has brought up has not been that. And they have not been anywhere close to what the expectations were. And so to me, I don't know what you have to gain from pitching at AAA. And we know that this Charrington regime views AA as the place where you develop, and AAA is kind of the purgatory, and that there's not as much development that goes on at AAA. Let him figure it out up here. And if he's really good and he's in the mix for Rookie of the Year and you end up losing out, okay. But I just don't think that is the biggest risk of not having a guy up here.
I agree. I agree with you 1,000%. My point, I think we've talked about this on the podcast too. What is stopping them from going 20-8? They went 20-8 with a worse roster than they have right now. Like, I wouldn't give up hope. Now, we can sit here as fans and say, their season's lost. They're done. They're not going to do anything. That's fan speak. If I'm in the organization, I'm going to believe in what we're doing. If I'm Paul Skenes, I've tried to put myself in Paul's shoes. Like, I want every available resource around me. If I think a guy is one of our 5 best starting pitchers, I want him on the roster. And I want somebody to tell me why this guy isn't on the roster. I'm giving you absolutely every single thing that I have. Why are you not giving me the requisite resources? And again, I'm talking like if I was Paul Skenes, this is how I would think about it. Like, Bubba Chandler is good enough to be up here. Everything else is noise. I would try to go 20-8. I'd try to go 20-8 under Donnie Kelly and see what sort of magic we can find. If they did it in April, why can't they do it in June? That's the way I look at it.
And that was Bob Dunning's stated reason for the managerial change, not the GM change, to you when you interviewed him at the time, because he said,
they weren't giving up
on this season. Right. And so you've played at a higher level since that point, albeit probably not where you needed to. to get back into a serious conversation about, maybe playing for a wild card spot or something like that. But they've held up their end of the bargain to some extent. And if you're going to hold up this facade of we're going to compete for 2025, yeah, I mean, I can say it. I don't think they're going anywhere. But if that's what you're going to say, you're not backing it up with your actions.
Yeah, and I mean, Adam, if you were in that clubhouse, that's not what you would say. If you were playing for the team, I would hope you wouldn't come to work every day and be like, "Yeah, season's over. We stink." Of course you're going to believe in it. It's your guys, your team. And I don't understand why they're not all operating that way. Like, don't tell me about Super 2. I mean, they're not going to tell you about Super 2, but I mean, they are with their actions. The guy has nothing else to prove. There's no other development. Prospects better than him, different than him. A lot of people have come up. Like, they're giving Ashcraft, Harrington, Burrows, other guys who aren't that level of prospect. They're giving them opportunities because they want to preserve their year of team control with Bubba. And I don't like it. I understand where they're coming from. I just don't like it.
Same. I don't like it either. But Jason, we're going to leave it there this week. Thanks for joining me. Everyone else, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We have a ton coming from Steelers mini camp. We've got an army of people out at Oakmont for the U.S. Open. So if you're looking for golf coverage this weekend, we're the place to go. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Help us out in the YouTube algorithm. Always appreciate your support, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.